Have you ever met a supernatural figure? I believe I have. Let me tell you a story. I'll tell you a story and then I'll give you some background and then I'll come back and finish my story. I was traveling between Houston and Austin, taking a family of young girls for a weekend of boating. And we'd driven from Houston to Austin, boated, and Sunday afternoon we're driving back to Houston. The trailer pulling the boat had a tire that blew out right at the edge of Giddings, Texas. And I didn't have the right tools or even a spare tire for the trailer. The girls they were really tired from playing out on the water all weekend, and they'd been real cranky, and their mother was needing to get back to Houston to get to work the next day. Of course, I had work as well. So there's a lot of pressure to get back home, and we're about 2 hours away from home, kind of stranded in the middle of nowhere. But it did break down at the edge of Giddings, Texas, at a gas station, and it was still daylight. So there were some advantages that we had working. So the girls who had been just kind of clawing at each other and were very cranky, were in the car in the air conditioning as their mother and I were out surveying, looking around, seeing, what our options were. It looked like we were going to have to leave the boat there, and I was going to have to come back, and assuming it was still there when I got back, change the tire and bring it back. And we opened the door to the car to tell the girls what we were going to do, and we noticed that they weren't fighting anymore. They were all three just kind of had their heads together and were on their knees praying. It was a very, very sweet scene. So let me stop there and tell you more about some of the things that I've learned about what I've come to learn has been called in folklore about this concept of the Green Man. So the legend of the Green Man is a rich tapestry of folklore, art, and symbolism that spans centuries and cultures. The Green Man is typically depicted as a face surrounded by or made of leaves and foliage, often with vegetation sprouting from his mouth. This image is commonly found carved in wood and stone in medieval churches and cathedrals across Europe. The Green Man is believed to symbolize the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, embodying themes of renewal, growth, and fertility. It is often associated with the arrival of spring and the renewal of lush vegetation after winter. The Green Man is considered a pagan symbol, representing a connection to nature in the ancient traditions of tree worship and nature veneration. The term Green Man was popularized by Lady Raglan in a 1939 article in the Folklore Journal, where she linked the foliate head motif found in church architecture to various green figures in folklore, such as Jack in the Green and May Day celebrations. Prior to this, figures were known as foliate heads were not widely recognized as part of a cohesive folkloric tradition. The Green Man has been interpreted in various ways over time. Some scholars argue that it is a modern invention rather than an ancient folkloric figure, while others see it as a symbol of pagan fertility that was integrated into Christian iconography. The figure has also been embraced by modern neo-pagan and environmental movements as a symbol of ecological awareness and interconnectedness of life. The Green Man is often associated with other figures in folklore, such as the Green Knight from the Arthurian legend, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and Robin Hood, who are seen as embodiments of the wild, untamed aspects of nature. These figures share themes of death and rebirth, and their stories often involve challenges and transformations that reflect the cyclical nature of life. So the Green Man is a multifaceted symbol with deep roots in European folklore, representing the enduring human connection to nature and the eternal cycles of growth and renewal. Well, whenever I read this about the Green Man, I thought this sounded like a lot of scholarly stuff about a bunch of people, sitting around and examining text and getting real academic and mental about folklore, about stories, about things and legends and myths that are passed down, written in fairy tales or in sacred texts that become kind of like the central themes of people coming together and having arguments and taking stances against each other based on their mental constructs. Well, I'm experiential, and this story that I told you earlier was the beginning of my understanding as I started trying to figure out what was going on, because these girls' prayer seemed to be answered immediately. As we discovered them praying, not seconds later, but not minutes later, but I guess it was maybe as soon as we looked up after realizing they were praying for help, for a miracle, little white pickup drives up. A little guy with blonde hair, called himself Mike, popped out, looked at the situation and said he had a trailer back at his place about 2 miles away, and looked like it was the same size and everything. And he left, and he came back in 10 minutes with a tire, changed the tire for us, and sent us on our way. Wouldn't take anything. He did leave me with one instruction to, because I was either going to pay him or I wanted to fix the tire and return his to him. And so he gave me this instruction to leave the tire in the ditch along the side of the road at this one crossing. And I did, and I never saw it picked up over the next 6 months that followed. So, we were thankful for our prayer to be answered, but it really created more questions about about life and faith and spirit and prayer than anything. And it gave me a great story to tell other people. I've told this story on other YouTube channels that I've done and related it to a number of other men in men's groups that I've been part of to talk about this exceptional event in my life. It was very powerful. An interesting thing that happened, I tended to try to look at that event that happened there as a sign, and it so happened that I had the chance to buy an oil field that was right in that area, exactly where this Mike had helped us, where this prayer was answered. And I have to admit, I think I made the mistake of considering that place to be a holy place, because the business that came up for me around oil was a nightmare. nothing went right around that acquisition of that, all the oil wells in that area. But it did give me a chance to get to know everyone throughout that region and try to find Mike. And I could not find him. And I knew all of the landowners in the area around there. And whenever I had the chance to buy this and run this company for a couple of years in that area around Giddings, I was never able to find anyone that knew or had heard of an individual that presented himself like Mike presented to us. So when I told this story, a number of men said, he's an angel. And then some people with more of a European influence, kind of brought up this concept of the green man. So that's why I bring up the green man to you. And, I'm not going to try to debate about where he, really came from or about whether, prayers are always answered and if they're answered in the ways exactly that we're seeing as outcomes that would relate to the cause and effect of prayer. These are mysteries to me, and it is something that I continue to do as part of my faith practice. But I throw this out here as a means of encouragement for others that may come across this that might be inspired. I'm Mark Roach. All the best.